This is Lucy Williams, Prosper Senior Project Manager.
This is Katie McAllister, Prosper Stakeholder Engagement Manager.
This is Fiona McBride, Research Staff Developer, and you are listening to a Making an Impact special as part of the Developing Practice podcast.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of the University of Liverpool's Academy's Developing Practice podcast. In this special episode, myself, Matthew Davis, an organisational developer, and Alex Owen, academic developer, discuss the Prosper project, a model being developed by colleagues based in the Academy to enhance postdoctoral career development and success. We hope you enjoy. We're really pleased to be speaking with you today as part of our Making an Impact specials. Making an Impact development series is an annual programme of events which aims to provide a rich and varied high quality development opportunities for researchers, academic and research related professional services staff at all stages of their career across all faculties. Our topic today is the Prosper project, which sits as part of the Academy here at the University of Liverpool. But before we get started, please could you tell us all a little bit about your professional background and how you have arrived at the positions that you're in now. Fee, can I start with you?
Hi, sure. Yes, so I was a postdoc for about a total of 7.5 years all in. So that was based at the University of Southampton after I did my PhD at the University of Liverpool. And I went there to try and broaden my skill set. But I also, whilst I was there, was based in a group that had no other postdocs, and it was slightly isolated just the way the building was set up. So it got me really interested in trying to connect with other postdocs. As part of this, I set up a postdoc forum within the Department of Chemistry, and because I sort of raised my head above the parapet, people then sort of realised I was a person that if they wanted to engage with postdocs or get postdocs' opinions on things, that I was kind of the go-to person. So that got me involved with things like the Athena Swan Committee at Southampton and their Concordat Delivery kind of committee. And then when I came back to the University of Liverpool to do a postdoc here, I was still interested in both developing my own skills as a scientist, but also this extra bit of developing a career and developing the careers of other postdocs, which is really what led me to applying for the position here at as a research staff developer in the Prosper project.
Lucy, over to you.
Okay, so I've also originally got a degree in chemistry, but I decided rather earlier than Fee to kind of move out of the direct chemistry area. But I was really interested in maintaining that link with research. So actually, my first substantive role was at the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, which is part of UKRI. And I was there for over 20 years. And I'll just tell you about a few of the roles that I had, because I think they're kind of quite relevant to what I'm doing now. So first of all, I was the head of the physics programme, and there I was really responsible for developing strategy and overseeing the delivery of EPSRC's portfolio of physics research. I then moved in a sideways and quite a different direction to head up a team of marketing and communications professionals. So I kind of took that strategic knowledge that I had about EPSRC and actually managed that team that was responsible for all of EPSRC's strategic engagement with stakeholders and also its oversight of all of EPSRC communications. And then my final sort of substantive role that I wanted to tell you about at EPSRC was the head of the developing leadership team. And I always used to struggle with this job title when I worked at EPSRC because it sounds a little bit like I worked in HR, whereas in fact, what that role was, it was really about all of developing the strategy for all of EPSRC's support for researchers in the external academic community. So from PhD right through early career fellowships through to world leading researchers. So I then moved to Liverpool just over 3 years ago, and I kind of moved to the other side of the fence, really. So having spent 20 years giving out research funding, I've now moved into the university setting to work with researchers to try and win research funding. And I was in the Research Partnerships and Innovation Directorate, supporting academics with large strategic bids, but also did quite a lot of work with early career researchers applying for fellowships, so both postdocs and also early career academics. During that time, I was also part of the team that put together the business case for the Prosper bid to Research England. So when the bid was successful and the project manager role was advertised, it really just seemed like too good an opportunity to miss, to really build on all my EPSRC experience, to take on board all that recent knowledge from working with researchers here at Liverpool, and to really address that challenging space of postdoc development, which I know from all my experiences tended to be really overlooked.
I think that's really interesting that a lot of your roles seem to have been people focused. It's no surprise to me that you were so keen on the project manager role, because that's clearly your background. You sound like your career has been all around creating communities as well as engaging with different ones. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that whole stakeholder engagement piece, which we'll tell you a little bit more about, which is absolutely crucial to Prosper, that whole thing of, seeing where those good ideas are and kind of building on them and making those connections. Those are all things that I've really enjoyed doing in my career. And I think there's great opportunity for us to do that in Prosper.
Brilliant. Well, you say stakeholder engagement is really important. We're going right over to Katie now. What is your job title at the moment, Katie?
Great segue, Matt. It's Stakeholder Engagement Manager for the project.
Okay,
yeah.
Tell me about your background then.
Yeah, so unlike Fee and Lucy, my degree undergrad is not in chemistry, it's in English, so a little bit different. And I came to this role from another role at the university. So before joining the Prosper team, I worked for about 4 years as the development manager within a research group in an infection pharmacology research group at UOL. And that role really was sort of initially around developing income, so bringing in money from pharmaceutical companies and supporting some research grants. But it kind of evolved to be about developing not only the income, but the impact of the clinical research that the group was carrying out. And I think a big part of that role was around developing relationships, primarily with pharma, but also with clinical societies and other clinicians within the particular research area, which was infectious disease. And that gave me sort of a deeper insight into the value and mutual benefits of external partnerships, which is a big part of Prosper, as you know, and a big thing that drew me towards this role. And previous to that, I worked in a sort of similar role also as a development manager, so developing and managing projects, but for a national charity called the Reader organisation, which some of you might be aware of if you're based in Liverpool, because it's a Liverpool-based charity, even though it has a national footprint. And that organisation really used literature and reading. It had different models of using reading as a sort of social intervention. So in a variety of different settings, so health settings, so in hospitals, also in the community, in care homes, in criminal justice settings. And my role was to bring in sort of different projects and develop partnerships, which enabled us to grow and develop in different areas. So I think that the sort of partnership development element of that was one of the things I enjoyed most and the experience that I bring to Prosper. But I think sort of another really important aspect is having worked in a research group, not as a researcher myself, but amongst researchers and amongst postdocs, I gained a real understanding over the last 4 years of the challenges that postdocs can sometimes face in terms of their career development, and I've got some good friends who are extremely talented, dedicated colleagues, but they would often be worrying about where their next contract was coming from, well into their 30s. And so when I read the Prosper business case, I could really see the value in it and really support the ambition to enable postdocs to harness the great potential that they have in a variety of ways.
That's brilliant. So we're here to talk specifically about Prosper. Could you tell us a little bit about what the project is? Lucy, if we start with you.
Yeah, so kind of just to give you the high level overview of it. So it's a £3.5 million Research England project. It started last October and it's led by Liverpool, but in partnership with the University of Manchester and Lancaster. And really, as we've kind of discussed, at its heart, it really aims to open up that huge untapped potential of the postdoc community to all those multiple career opportunities and pathways that are out there. So there are three kind of unique strands to the project. So first of all, we're really working closely with a group of employers and getting them to help shape the development, the skills, the experiences that postdocs need to really to transform their future opportunities and their future employability. Secondly, we really are working very collaboratively and closely with principal investigators. So these are the kind of the research leads, the people that have won the research grants that then have employed the postdocs. And really recognising the kind of the key role they play in supporting postdocs to pursue that chosen career pathway. And finally, we really, and this is a really key and important strand, we're really aiming to democratise access to development. So kind of what do we mean by that? Well, we recognise really that the postdoc community is really diverse in terms of the disciplines it covers. So Prosper's aiming to cover all of the research disciplines from arts and humanities through the sciences through into medical areas. But also diverse in terms of the contract lengths from sort of a matter of months to several years, in terms of the personal characteristics, in terms of the whole range of caring responsibilities. And we want to make sure that whatever we design and deliver really plays to this diverse audience. So culture change, co-creation, working in partnership, these are things that are going to be really key to sort of achieving the aims of Prosper.
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously come at a really important time, which you wouldn't have preempted, but it has come at a good time, hasn't it? And I guess in terms of reflecting on my own practice and working with postdocs and academics in the past, it's definitely something that's needed. Fee, how did you bring together the understanding in terms of the need for this project?
So there's always been sort of across the UK very sort of patchy coverage for career development for postdocs. It's very informal typically. Often most universities don't have anything specific to offer to their postdocs from the careers service within the universities, and it depends very heavily on how much each university is actually invested in career development for their postdocs. So it's been a bit, so it's very hit and miss what kind of development, if any, was available for postdocs. And historically, it's been a very sort of narrow normal that it's been, you do your PhD, you then become a postdoc, and then you become an academic. And that's been sort of the very linear pathway, and that's what happens. You go A to B to C. And the problem with that is that as we've had more PhD graduates, there's then been a larger number of postdocs, whereas the number of academic positions has remained relatively stagnant over the years. But despite the fact that that stagnant number of jobs, hasn't increased with the increasing number of postdocs, people still have aspired to that role. But obviously, with the increased competition, it's not going to happen for everybody. And that doesn't mean that they're failures, and it doesn't mean that they've in any way, they're not achieved something and they're not going to have a great career and a great life. But it's quite a big deal and quite a big mindset change that needs to be addressed, and we need to look at, and as well as being able to make people sort of recognise that they have got amazing skills that are of huge value and use in other sectors. There is more to the world outside of academia, and although we're still, we're not saying by any means, people still want to go into academia, and Prosper's still, aiming to work with, people to reflect on their skills and their skill set, and academia may still be the correct place for a number of postdocs, but it's just that people can have those horizons broadened, and hopefully some of those sort of more traditional barriers where you kind of think, oh God, I've failed, or this is a plan B, and we really want to get rid of that. So that's where the need, I think, has really come from.
Brilliant. I think you're absolutely right. The more we can get people with that level of qualification into every aspect of life, the greater we all benefit from that. Katie, just summarising, who is it for in particular, the Prosper Project?
Yeah, so I think building on what Fee has said, the focus of Prosper is on inspiring postdocs and providing a range of different opportunities for them to realise their potential, both within and beyond academia. So I think in many ways, the postdocs are the primary beneficiaries of the project. However, given that co-creation is so important to the project, and given that, the vast talents of the postdoc community that Lucy and Fee have referred to, the benefits of a much broader group. So I think all of our key stakeholder groups stand to benefit, and the key stakeholder groups, I'd say, beyond postdocs themselves, are PIs, employers, and the HE sector more broadly. So I think, given that the Prosper model will be co-created with the project, it's not just about what we ultimately create, but how we do it as well. So as we co-create the model over the next 3 years, PIs, employers, staff developers, postdocs will all be coming together and providing lots of rich opportunities for networking, learning from best practice, sharing different ideas from different fields. So I think that's a key benefit of the project. I mean, PIs will have opportunities to develop their own best practice, of course, in their own network, and employers who work with us to develop the model will also have the opportunity to shape the development of their future leaders. And ultimately, I should say as well that as we do come towards the end of the project, 3 years or so from now, what we will have created is a sustainable model, so a set of resources, frameworks, activities, then that will be available across the sector. So although the University of Liverpool is the project lead and will be developing the model in partnership primarily at first with our delivery partners at the University of Manchester and Lancaster University, ultimately the benefits of what we create will be rolled out across the sector.
Brilliant. And I guess by bringing all those people together that you've listed, those conversations that are taking place will actually inform the research culture and that wider debate that's taking place at the moment, Lucy.
Yeah. I mean, I think we knew when we really embarked on this project that it was extremely timely for all of the sort of reasons that we've just articulated. But really over the last 6 months, I think it's become even more so, you know. I mean, ultimately, what we're trying to do with Prosper, yes, we're going to be developing this model and resources, but actually it's also about culture change. It's about challenging those norms of postdoc career success that Fee talked about. It's not just about an academic track, but it's about redirecting postdocs to the multiple opportunities. And I think the fact that we've got these broader sector-wide discussions going on. So I know you're going to be recording a podcast with the Wellcome Trust, and so I think that the broader sector-wide discussions that their survey and their series of town meetings have stimulated, but the way they're actually challenging the community to actually come up with the solutions, and challenging both the individuals but also the research institutions. And then the fact that we've got the funders on board. So I know Wellcome are taking a lead here, but Royal Society have also been doing a lot of work in this space. UKRI have also got an appointment in this space. So I think the fact that, you know, it's such a hot area with everybody discussing it means the fact that the Prosper, you know, it's very, very timely for us to be pursuing our Prosper aims in this kind of environment.
Thanks, Lucy. I mean, what we've just had there, I guess, is the why, the who, and the how. I suppose my next question is going to be what. So what's next for the project, or what's on the horizon for Prosper?
So the next major things that we've got on the horizon for Prosper are two live sessions at Making an Impact. So our first session is More Than a Job on Friday the 12th of June, 9:30 till 10:30. And here we're going to have 3 videos we've recorded with people who are former postdocs but have now got really cool jobs in other sectors beyond academia, and they're giving us their tidbits, and they're going to be available after each of the videos to answer some live question and answers. And so we've got like I said, we've got 3 of those in that session, and then our second session is called Prosper Portal, and that's on Friday the 19th of June at 2 till 3. And this is going to be the launch of our Prosper Portal, and it's a set of resources which are just housed on this portal, but they're going to cover a large range of things that's aiming at this stage in the phase 1 of our Prosper launch to help postdocs specifically to reflect on themselves, on their skills, on their values, on their career trajectories, give them a lot of advice on the kind of skills they have and how they can translate those into a way that's meaningful for employers. There'll be things as well for PIs, research staff developers, and then as it grows, this is going to be added to, it's going to be all of the resources we've got are all very much there for a sort of reflection and redraft. As you know, we have people interact with them, we're going to take feedback on and change as we go. So as Lucy was talking about before, we're very, you know, iterative process.
I think it's important to mention as well that we'll soon be moving into phase 2 of the project, and that will involve recruiting a cohort of postdocs to take part in more structured, targeted development interventions based around what we're calling career clusters. And these clusters will comprise a range of different sectors, fields and functions that postdocs have the potential to go into. And that will include some of the more typical routes that might come to mind, such as research and development, policy, tech transfer, etc., to careers that postdocs may not necessarily have considered, but where they can certainly add value, such as business and strategy, consultancy, comms. And I think that the career clusters phase is one of the really innovative aspects of the project, in that this is where the employer co-creation part of the project really takes off. And we'll be working really closely with employers to understand what roles they want to fill in different fields and sectors, how they develop people for those roles now and how they would like to do it in the future. And working together with those employers, we'll develop a whole range of really innovative and sector function relevant development interventions. And we haven't we haven't determined exactly what they will be yet, but they will include things like developing sector awareness, mindset, developing networks as well as skills. So that's going to be a really exciting phase of the project.
Great. So not a lot then.
Yeah, we're not. I'm not busy at all. I've just got my feet up.
Yeah, it's we've never been so productive at home. Yeah, that's an awful lot. I really like the approach that you're taking there, especially with the reflective piece. It really is the key that unlocks the door to development, isn't it? To that self-realization. It comes on this podcast time after time after time, the importance of it. So yeah, it's a good model to go down, and then to obviously use that feedback as an iterative process. Yeah, can't fault that whatsoever. But right at the beginning, you talked about making an impact. So, and I'll just pass this one over to Katie. So how does the project fit in with the Making an Impact framework?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So I think, I think Making an Impact really is a flagship annual event series for the university. You know, it's ambitious in its scope and it's innovative in its range of development opportunities. It's got, really rich programme. And therefore, I think in terms of its ambition, its focus on innovation, supporting people in a variety of ways, culture change, it really chimes with the values and the aims of Prosper. So that's the kind of overall sort of synergy. But I think more specifically, the Making an Impact framework is arranged around 7 key themes, and all of those as well have synergies with Prosper in different ways. So one of those is making an impact beyond academia, which obviously is really important to us. And we've already touched upon how, supporting or helping or enabling postdocs to realise their potential across multiple careers, both within and beyond academia, is really central to the project. But some of the other impact themes around making an impact on the economy, public policy and services, quality of life, culture, etc. I think this really sort of fits in with what we're saying about unleashing postdoc potential.
Okay, so just changing tack a little bit, Matt and I have had a number of these conversations now with people who are engaging in kind of the research field. We've chatted to Katie Wheat at Vitae, we've chatted to colleagues from the Wellcome Trust, we've chatted to a number of postdocs. And one of the key themes that keeps coming through is this concept of kindness. I know it came out through the Wellcome Trust survey, which really struck me that actually I thought, the survey would throw up something far more academic, but actually, time and time again, we're hearing this message that actually research culture really needs to rethink how kind we are to each other. And I think that's come through very, very clearly kind of through the postdoc voice. So Fee, as a former postdoc, what is it that postdocs can bring to the table that's valuable in terms of the Prosper project?
So obviously they are, the focus of the project, really, because we want them to realise that they do have a huge number of transferable skills regardless of their disciplinary background, and the Prosper project is seeking to be applicable and useful to postdocs regardless of that disciplinary background. We're not just saying that this is only going to work for if you're from arts and humanities or if you're from sciences. It's there to work for everybody, because I think regardless of whatever the disciplinary background is, postdocs have actually got a huge amount of things in common, and they often don't appreciate that they've got a huge number of extremely marketable skills that are really versatile, and they can use them, these sort of tools that they've gathered in their skill set and apply them to a huge range of things. I mean, we've been talking to some of these former postdocs who now work in other sectors. So one of my former colleagues, a former chemistry postdoc, now works in the civil service, and we got a great quote from him, which was he said that postdocs really need to pay attention to the skills they take for granted, because actually they're really valuable skills. It can be quite difficult to see those skills because everyone around you has got them as well, whereas if you move into an environment where not everyone has the same background, actually these skills are really, really valuable. Which I think is I think he puts it really nicely, and nicer than I can put, because often you're surrounded by people who are also postdocs who've also got these skills, and so it's almost can't see the wood for the trees, and you don't realize how special you actually are. And with that engagement with postdocs, and we were trying to find a good word for it, either postdoc alumni or former postdocs. We've been playing around with, we'll come up with a better way of saying this, that people have been postdocs and now gone on to something else. Apparently my suggestion for postdocs is just
I was just about to say that.
I know, great idea, right? But if anybody is listening to this podcast that is a former postdoc and is now working somewhere amazing and would like to share their career story with us, please get in touch. We are interested in capturing this and sharing your experiences.
Brilliant, so important. Sophie, what's missing from the current postdoc development experience that Prosper specifically addresses?
Definitely the whole person approach. So often it's literally, obviously, as I was mentioning previously, it's often been very academic focused, and it's just been talking about, number of papers, number of talks you've given, and it's extremely narrow, and it's not actually looking at you as a whole person, what you enjoy doing. So one of the other things that's really unique about Prosper is we're going to be co-creating with PIs, because we really need their support, and also we want to tap into their expertise in how to help and support the career development of their postdocs. In addition to this, we're also co-creating with employers. So as Katie mentioned, we've got these career clusters coming up, but we're also really listening to what postdocs want. So we had several focus groups, and postdocs are really keen on hearing directly from employers what it is that they're looking for in their ideal workforce. But this is a two-way thing. There's a real benefit to employers in engaging with the project, because they'll really get a great understanding of what a postdoc is, what they can bring to them, and the benefits of this sort of untapped potential that they've never really considered before, and that's really going to be of benefit both to the employers and to the postdocs directly, and we're really looking to facilitate this as part of the Prosper project. The fact that it's also going to be applicable to all disciplines, that seems to be missing. We've had a huge look around. We've been trying to do as a comprehensive sort of environmental scan as we could to see what kind of provision there is out there. And typically there's some brilliant projects out there, but they're usually focusing in just on one group of postdocs, and the ones that we find that are usually the more overlooked are in the arts and humanities, just because historically there's been the numbers of postdocs in those areas have been slightly lower than in the sciences and STEM subjects. So because of that, they're sort of a smaller market, so they tend to get overlooked, and we definitely are not overlooking them. My other research staff developer on the Prosper project, Dr Catherine Charlwood, has got an English background, and so we are definitely in tune with the needs of arts and humanities postdocs.
Just to follow up on that, Fee, we had a really nice quote, didn't we, from one of our postdocs, that we want to kind of move to the situation where the career development, or the of a postdoc is as important an output of a research project as kind of the publications and the other outputs. So that kind of talent that's developed through the project, you know, it's quite a big aspiration.
Okay, going to change lanes ever so slightly. One word that we've heard throughout the conversation so far that's come up quite a number of times is co-creation. So, Katie, just correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this like one of the unique things around the Prosper project, around its co-creation with employers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think co-creation with employers is something that really makes Prosper stand out in the research development space. And what the reason that we're doing that is, well, multifarious, but I think really we recognise that as higher education institutions, we can do certain things expertly, and one of those is develop researchers. But if we seek to sort of expand the development framework within which we enable and support our postdocs, then we recognise that we need expertise beyond academia to support people to thrive beyond academia. So there's an element of kind of getting employers' input into the skills that they need and also how they develop their employers. But we also recognise that working with employers, we can combine our expertise and create something that's, to use a cliche, greater than the sum of its parts. So that's the kind of broad thinking around the co-creation. And I think we've really involved employers in every aspect of our activity so far. So even as early as the bid development stage, which Lucy worked on, you know, employers were consulted with widely and deeply on that. And since I've been in post in January, we've held a number of in-depth interviews with employers around the sort of high-level skills and also the mindsets that they need to build into their workforce. And I think we've tried to be as broad as possible in that consultation, and we'll continue to deepen and broaden our engagement. So far, just to give you a bit of an idea of the types of organisations that we've spoken to, we've had interviews with some organisations who may typically employ postdocs already, such as IBM Research UK, or other employers that have R&D functions such as Unilever, pharmaceutical sector, etc. We've also spoken to a lot of people within tech transfer and research commercialisation space. So, you know, lots of employers that some postdocs may typically be already aware of. But in addition, we recognise with Prosper that we don't just want to sort of support postdocs along traditional career pathways, but to open a broader range. So we've spoken to employers who wouldn't necessarily think of postdocs as a recruitment pool. So the likes of Tate, National Museums Liverpool, some of the local enterprise partnerships, professional Northwest Business Leadership Team.
Great. Just picking up on some of the things you said then, I mean, obviously you've got that first stage that's coming. So feel free to not answer this question, but what are some of the things that the employers are saying, or are you holding these back for sort of release at that point?
No, I can give you a sneak peek. I think this idea that Fee's already shared from a postdoc alumni, as we're calling them, about the value of postdocs, that comes through really strongly, not only amongst employers who already employ postdocs, but amongst those who, after a sort of short conversation about what a postdoc is and the type of skills they have, who that sort of group also recognises the value that people with research skills, with project management skills could bring to an organisation. So that's a really kind of positive thing that's come through. We've sort of asked specific things around CV advice, and one of the big messages is that you need to sort of consider your CV really as a marketing document rather than you know, a record of everything you've achieved. So when you're considering, if you are considering applying for jobs beyond academia, you need to really think carefully about how you produce that document and how you target the content of it towards the specific, you know, the job description or the person's specification for a particular job. And I think thirdly, around skills, the importance of leadership skills has come through really strongly. And that doesn't just mean people management. It can mean resource management. It can mean bringing an idea to fruition. And I think, you know, all postdocs will have experience of that in some way. And what we want to do with phase one is sort of support and encourage postdocs to uncover the experience that they've got, you know, in a way that they can translate that to employers. And finally, digital skills, that's something that employers all...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can well imagine. No, I bet they were big on digital skills.
Yeah.
I think there's some really good advice for anybody out there, isn't there, about think about your CV as a marketing document. That is interesting. I mean, people are becoming more switched on to that. You see people building personal brands on platforms such as LinkedIn and so on. So getting that message out to postdocs, that's a really good thing to do.
Yeah, and it's a completely different mindset, isn't it? You know, if you think about the way that you're sort of trained to develop your academic CV, I think if you work as not as a researcher, if you work even in HE, you know, in the sort of more corporate professional functions of HE, like ourselves, then you may already be aware of that. But it's important to recognise that for professional researchers whose all of their research development has been around the academic CV, it's quite a shift.
Yeah.
So that's some of the things we're uncovering. Yeah.
Just to build on that, Katie, actually, it's worth sharing maybe what I thought was really kind of insightful feedback we had from an early focus group we did with a group of IBM employees who had formerly held postdocs. And one of the things that really struck me about the way they were talking about putting together a CV, you know, as an academic CV is a list of outputs, a publication, whereas actually they needed to turn that round and describe how they'd achieved something, the sort of skills that they'd used, rather than the output focused, which I thought was a really kind of a very nice, succinct way of kind of describing it. You know, a lot of us who've applied for perhaps non-academic jobs are used to this idea of, you know, thinking about how you address competencies, but that's quite an alien concept, I think, perhaps to quite a few postdocs. I certainly know that from talking to Kathy and Fee.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one of the things with postdocs is you've spent such a long time and such a lot of effort just trying to get these outputs, getting those papers, and they've taken a huge amount of time and effort to do the experiments, to get them written up, then to get them past the editor, the peer review process, and then to be published in a very prestigious journal. And you're being told, take that out. And you're like, but it's like you ripped off my soul. It can be really difficult. It is really difficult. And you've got to realize that taking it out of your CV, you're not losing anything. You're not losing that experience. You just need to extract, as Lucy was saying, you need to extract those sort of skills that you've had from it, that process that you went through, even if it does mean you have to take off the fact that you got a science or nature paper, which can be phenomenally painful, I'm sure, for people who managed to get that. I never did.
On that subject of publications, I didn't mention this because I know it is, you know, for many reasons potentially a sensitive subject, but lots of, you know, non-academic employers say, on your CV, I don't want to see a list of publications.
No, don't tell me that.
But they say, by all means, highlight the biggest achievements, you know, so if you did get that nature paper, you can still keep it on.
Well, that's good news. Brilliant. So employers and engaging with employers in terms of co-creation has obviously been a really important part of the project. And Lucy, I know there's lots of other groups and people involved. Also, the University of Manchester and Lancaster universities are partners in the project. Could you tell us a little bit in terms of how they're involved?
So Manchester and Lancaster are our two kind of initial partners. And so the aim really is for us to kind of develop the model firstly at Liverpool, but we're already working very closely with those partners. Then to test it out at Manchester and Lancaster, so testing how we can roll out both that phase one that we've discussed, that self-reflection phase, but also that phase two, that in-depth career clustering phase. And then ultimately take that learning from how we've iterated and how we've managed to roll it out beyond into the N8, and also then at the end of the project, the ultimate aim is that we roll that out across the whole sector.
What a great chat we just had. But we'd like to finish each and every podcast with 3 or 4 take-home tips that the listeners could reflect on in terms of their own personal practice. So if you could each give us a thought or a hint or a tip to take and to reflect on, what would they be, Lucy?
I guess my one would be really to encourage people, and I'm just reflecting back on my own career really, to take advantage really of some of the multiple opportunities outside of the day job. Now, I know we're all often really busy, but I think some of the real learning experiences that I've had is when I've actually had the opportunity to take a little bit of a risk, potentially perhaps by moving outside to kind of lead a working group or take on something that just is slightly outside my comfort zone. And I think that really, if you do that in a kind of, I'm not saying a voluntary basis, but it's outside of your job, so it might be like helping to organise a conference or leading on a working group or whatever it might be. And I think then that just gives you that confidence. Yes, I've taken on that thing that I didn't know that I could do it when I set out, and I've achieved it. And then next time round, you can build on that.
Yeah, I think my tip would actually be a quote stolen from one of our employers at IBM Research UK, which is, take a good look at yourself. So I think it builds on the themes of the importance of self-reflection, but really kind of look at all of the, reflect on both your strengths and the experiences that you have and how valuable they are and how it's possible that you are currently undervaluing those. But also, don't be afraid to identify areas where you need to develop, and linking with what Lucy said, if you do identify an area for development, see if there are opportunities to address that area.
A good one. Thanks. Fee?
So I think I've got two, one that sort of builds on what Katie's just said, and actually start that self-reflective process. Don't think about doing it, start it, actually do it, and acknowledge that it is actually a process. It's just not a one-off thing. It's something you need to revisit, and that it's a process that takes time and it can be difficult, but that's okay. And I think the second thing is, if you've got any opportunities to speak to people outside of the sector that you work in, so either beyond academia or even if it's just within academia and it's just somebody that's beyond your particular discipline, and you've got the opportunity to really engage with them, do it. You learn a huge amount, and it can actually be the way to start building your own networks and starting to find out what things really interest you or not. We've certainly found that within the Prosper team, that we've learned a lot from each other, really having those interdisciplinary things. Because previously, I'm a chemist, I only spoke to all the chemists. I mean, a physicist at the outside, but it's been really great.
Brilliant. Thanks, everybody. You've been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there's lots in that podcast in terms of prompting us to think about some of the activity that's going on in the university, and also to think about our own personal practice. One of the things that the colleagues picked up on that's challenged me is this idea of thinking broadly and thinking creatively. So rather than just assuming you'll follow one career path, I guess for the Prosper project, they're thinking about postdocs all becoming academics, actually thinking widely in terms of the opportunities open to us. And I know that that's what the Prosper project is aiming to address, supporting postdocs to think outside of academia for the future, as well as in academia itself. Also, that the career development of postdocs in this respect is just as important as any other output from the project. And I thought that was really challenging, that statement, that when we work with postdocs on research, that thinking about their career development is a really, really important output from the research project.
Yeah, absolutely. To frame that, they'll need to think about their CV. I think that the tip right at the end around having their CV being framed as a marketing document for themselves, and to think about and to write about the journey and the skills used during whatever project they've been working on, and not just the outcome or a list of publications or tasks, is absolutely what employers are looking for. So that was a great tip to take away.
It was, absolutely. Even if it was a little bit challenging in terms of taking some of your academic papers, which you've worked so hard to achieve, off your CV, I absolutely understand what they're saying from that. Well, lots for us to think about there. If you'd like to take your thinking further, we've added some resources to the website specifically to do with this podcast. So you can check these out at liverpool.ac.uk/the-academy/podcast. So do have a look at those, and then let us know what you think about these ideas and also about the episodes specifically. You can tweet us at Live Uni Academy, and also you can tweet us directly at eLearnerMatt or at Alexandra_Owen. We'd love to hear from you.
And we're really grateful for those who have taken the time to either rate or review our show in your podcast provider's app. So if you've listened and enjoyed this episode, please rate or even better, review the show, as it really does help get us noticed, and therefore more people will find us as a result. Also, I know a lot of you have listened and have not yet subscribed, so please do hit that follow or subscribe button now and keep up to date with our latest episodes. Bye for now.